Wow! Thank you guys so much for almost 6,000 views from my latest video, and before we go on to the next FNAF theory, I wanted to point out more details regarding my crying child theory. You know, when I mentioned that there were already a Dave Miller in the FNAF franchise, well, according to YouTube user Christian Plays 5318, it turns out that there is about 5 FNAF books that has the name that can be the possible full name to David or Davis, as Davis largely considered as a nickname for both David and Davis. Apart from Dave Miller in the Silverites, there is one book called Five Nights at Freddy's Tales from the Pizzaplex Part 5 Bobby Dots that is about Edwin Murray, who has a son named David. We'll get to this book later in this video. And in Fazbear Frights Part 7, the father of Chris Watson is mentioned as Dave. In Tales from the Pizzaplex Part 1 Laddy's Game, Dave, or possibly short for David, appears. And in a chapter under construction, Davis appears, which can be suggested as the long term for the nickname Dave. But I have also noticed it once myself when upon watching the FNAF movie trailer. In one scene, you can see a wall with drawings, and one of the drawings is a child with the text reading David. At this point, we don't know much about it and who it is referring to, and besides, the game lore and FNAF movie are two different universes, as are the Fazbear Fright series, Tales from the Pizzaplex, and game lore are all different in the universe. But of course, we can draw parallels between the two universes and their stories, or details from the stories. But for one story with Edwin Murray, who has a son named David, it is pretty darn clear that this meant to parallel Henry and his only child, Charlie, as David. So to me, it is pretty hard to draw a parallel between Edwin and David being William and Crying Child. Anyways, over to the actual theory, which ties back to FNAF 6 or Pizzeria Simulator, whatever you want to call it. Over a year ago, I posted FNAF 6 date solved on the Game Theorist subreddit, and it's not the date as in year but also in month and day of the month. So hold on to your seats because we are going in. Firstly, we know for a fact that FNAF 3 takes place in 2023, 30 years after FNAF 1, which takes place in 1993. In FNAF 6, once we've selected the hidden blueprints in the office monitor, we can see at the bottom left corner a text reading playing audio file HRI 223. HRI 223 implies that the blueprints or some of the blueprints were made by Henry in 2023. While they might have been made in 2023, it doesn't necessarily mean that the game takes place in 2023. The blueprints could have just been made before the pizza place opened up or just downloaded during 2023. Secondly, thanks to the book Five Nights at Freddy's Tales from the Pizzaplex Part 5 Bobby Dots, we know that Edwin, possibly parallel version of Henry, comes back 40 years later to rebrand Fazbear Entertainment, just as we see Henry do in FNAF 6, rebranding the whole company. Since Fazbear Entertainment was created in 1983, as we can see on one of the fast coins from Help Wanted, it makes sense to rebrand it 40 years later in 2023. So we already have the full year. Thirdly, and the most satisfying of them all, is the specific date of FNAF 6, December 4th to 9th. Why these dates? To start off, the release date of the game was December 4th, 2017, on a Monday. The game begins on a Monday as well, and finishes on Saturday. If we look at the weekdays, we can see that Saturday must fall on December 9th, 2017. And if we look at the same dates but in 2023, we see that Monday once again falls on December 4th, just as it did back in 2017 when the game got released. Coincidence? Well, at this point, maybe. But if we go back to Scott Cawthon's Steam post regarding FNAF 6 late release, he released the game a day early after his apology regarding the most of his fans were overhyped and thought it was going to be a bigger game. Well, to me, it might sound as an excuse to potentially release the game on a Monday, since the whole game's shifts or days starts on a Monday. It sounds a bit strange, doesn't it? Just to release a game one day early because of an apology to the overhyped fans. Did Scott intend to do this as a clue to pinpoint the date of FNAF 6? Well, this is not the first time that Scott has released games too early after all. In one of the posts from Scott Games, Scott stated that FNAF 2 was gonna be released in January 2015, but was eventually released on November 2014, 2 months earlier. We'll get to this later on in this video. Even FNAF 4 was gonna be released on Halloween 2015, but was eventually released on July 23rd, 2015. This lead is therefore not really a strong evidence considering how an early releaser Scott was at this time. To add one more thing up, this is not the first time when the release dates of the games add up with the month and day of the game. For example, FNAF 2, as I said earlier, got released earlier on November 11th, 2014, and takes place from November 8th to 13th, 1987, with November 13th actually being on a Friday. And this wouldn't surprise me if this was the case of FNAF 3. We know that the third game takes place right before FNAF 6, and since it got released on March 2nd, 2015, it might imply that FNAF 3 takes place sometime in March 2023. Typically, it takes 6 months or to a year to start up a company, which in this case would be the rebranding of Fazbear Entertainment. And since March and December are 9 months apart, this time period would actually make sense. And, well, if you need more proof, the building in FNAF 6 was a former pizzeria or restaurant, possibly the Fredbear's Family Diner location. Since the alleyway in FNAF 2, the scene where Charlie gets murdered, is similar to the cutscenes in FNAF 6, I will not say that I have strongest evidence or arguments of this, since it might be a big coincidence regarding the dates from December 4th to 9th, with December 9th being on a Saturday, which in the game is the final day and where the happy ending slash FNAF 6 fire takes place. This theory doesn't really verify some details regarding the FNAF lore, but I thought it was a cool touch to just talk about the dates, since the dates between 1993 and 2023 are mostly unknown. But what do you think? Was this a way for Scott to secretly pinpoint the exact date for FNAF 6? Or was it all just a big coincidence? Leave a comment below if you want to share your theories or thoughts. Share this video if you want, like it, and if not even better, subscribe. But that's it from me. Thanks for watching. Yo!